Imagine you're doing your job, trying to keep everything running smoothly when a customer hands you a bill and you see something written on the receipt that hits you like a punch to the gut. It's harsh, personal, and totally uncalled for. It's not just the words that sting, but the realization that someone, another human being, would go out of their way to treat you this way. You've probably been there before, feeling like you're invisible, unappreciated, or even worse, disrespected. Now, what if I told you that this moment of humiliation didn't end there? What if the server in question didn't just shrug it off and move on, but instead chose to take matters into their own hands, flipping the script in a way no one saw coming? What if their response went viral, sparking a movement that would have people talking for weeks to come? Sounds intriguing, right? Let's pause here for a second. Picture yourself in this situation, working hard, staying polite, and still dealing with customers who seem to forget that you're human. That's the backdrop of today's story, but there's a twist that you won't believe. As you settle into the world of customer service, where the grind never stops, something happens that will shake your faith in how we treat each other in the service industry. And it all starts with one rude note. In today's story, we're going to meet someone like you, or maybe like someone you know, a server just trying to get by, doing their job, taking the good with the bad. But then, one customer decides to leave behind something that feels like a slap in the face. The note they left wasn't just rude, it was downright cruel. But here's the kicker. The server's response? It's the kind of move you won't see coming. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around to see how this unfolds. The internet has been buzzing about stories like this for years, but this one stands out because of the way it went viral. It's not just about what happened. It's about how a simple act of defiance turned into a headline-making response. You won't believe the reaction from the other side, how it went from a moment of anger to something far bigger than anyone anticipated. Now, let me ask you, have you ever felt like you needed to stand up for yourself, to let someone know that they crossed the line, but weren't sure how? Maybe you've been that person serving food, drinks, or services to customers who forgot that behind every smile is a person, not just an employee. You know, in those moments, it can be tempting to let things slide. After all, the customer is always right? But what if, in that moment, standing up for yourself was the best thing you could do, not just for your dignity, but for everyone who's ever felt overlooked or unimportant? That's exactly what the server did, and in a way that caught everyone off guard. But here's the thing, there's more to this story than just the response. It's about something much deeper. It's about a moment of cruelty turned into a lesson about respect, about not allowing others to diminish your worth, even when you're the one on the receiving end. As you watch this unfold, you'll realize that this story is about more than a note left on a receipt. It's about human dignity, standing your ground, and showing the world that you won't let a single disrespectful act define who you are. Now, let's take a step back and dive deeper into the story. This isn't just about what happened in one restaurant on a random Tuesday. It's about a movement, a quiet rebellion against the idea that service workers should just take whatever comes their way. The server's response wasn't just a reaction, it was a statement. And that statement spoke volumes about how far we've come in recognizing the value of all workers, no matter the industry, no matter their role. At this point, you're probably dying to know how this whole thing went down. Well, buckle up, because in just a moment, I'm going to reveal exactly what this server wrote in response to the customer's note. It's one of those moments where you have to pause and think, did they really just do that? But first, let's set the scene a bit more. Think back to your own experiences, whether you've been a server, a cashier, or even just a customer at a restaurant. How many times have you witnessed or experienced unfair treatment? How many times have you felt the sting of an insult disguised as a complaint? Now, what if you could flip that script and make a stand? That's exactly what happened in this story. And I promise you, once you hear what happens next, you'll understand why it went viral, and why this server's response has become a symbol of standing up for yourself and others in a world that often forgets the value of kindness and respect. So, what did the server write in response to this rude note? Was it a brilliant comeback? A powerful act of defiance? Or perhaps something even more unexpected? The answer is coming, but before I reveal it, let me ask you one final question. How would you respond if you were in this server's shoes? Would you take the high road and let it go? Or would you stand up and make a statement that the world would remember? The moment of truth is almost here. Keep watching to find out how this story ended and why the server's response made headlines everywhere. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The server in question, whose story quickly spread across social media, wasn't someone you'd expect to make headlines. They weren't a celebrity or a famous influencer, just a regular person doing their job, trying to make ends meet. But when the rude note was left on the receipt, it ignited something much bigger than a simple act of poor customer service. To truly understand why this moment became so pivotal, we need to look at who this server really was and what led them to this moment of defiance. Let's rewind a bit. This server, let's call them Alex, had been working at the same diner for the past few years. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. Alex had always been the type to keep their head down, smile, and get through the day as best they could. The job wasn't easy, long shifts, difficult customers, and the constant rush of orders. But what really made it hard for Alex was the way they were treated by certain customers. It wasn't just about the rude comments here and there, it was the way some people saw them as less than human, as if their worth was only tied to the service they provided. It had always been a part of the job, but over time, the constant barrage of disrespect had started to take a toll. Recently, Alex had been feeling particularly low. The regulars who came in were used to the friendly banter, the small talk about the weather or the latest sports scores, but deep down, Alex had been struggling. They'd been dealing with some personal issues, family problems, money troubles, and the constant pressure of just making it through another day. It wasn't something they often talked about, not with coworkers, and definitely not with customers. But these issues had been eating away at them, and that day, it felt like it was all piling up. The day started like any other, with the usual morning rush. A few regulars, a couple of newcomers, and the never-ending clatter of plates and silverware. Everything was running smoothly until the moment the rude note was left on the receipt. It wasn't just any note. It was cruel, mocking, and aimed at Alex personally. The customer had clearly taken the time to pen something that cut deep, something meant to hurt. To most people, it would have been just another piece of paper. But to Alex, it felt like a direct attack, a reminder of how little they seemed to matter in the eyes of some people. At first, Alex considered ignoring it. After all, what was the point in confronting a stranger over something so trivial? But something inside them snapped. Maybe it was the weight of everything they'd been carrying for so long, or perhaps it was the realization that they were tired of letting people walk all over them. Whatever it was, it pushed Alex to take a stand, not just for themselves, but for anyone who'd ever been on the receiving end of a cruel word or action. But what no one saw coming was how Alex would respond. Instead of quietly brushing it off or fuming in silence, Alex decided to take a different approach, one that would make waves. They didn't know it at the time, but that simple act would send ripples through the online world, sparking a conversation about respect, human dignity, and the power of standing up for yourself. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds like a classic story of underdog triumph, right? The server getting revenge on the rude customer in some epic way that leaves everyone cheering. But here's where things start to get a little murky. What if Alex's response wasn't what we expected? What if, instead of a sharp comeback, they chose a path that no one saw coming? And what if this moment, which started with one person's cruel behavior, began to unravel a much bigger story, one that involved more than just a bad customer encounter? As the story spread, questions began to surface. Who was the customer who left the note? Why would they go out of their way to be so mean to someone they didn't even know? Was this a case of one person having a really bad day, or was there something deeper at play here? And more importantly, what made Alex's response so captivating that it drew the attention of thousands of people? Some speculated that the customer who left the note had been having their own struggles. Maybe they were in a rush, stressed out about something in their personal life, or simply taking out their frustrations on an easy target. But others wondered if there was something more sinister going on, a history of previous interactions between Alex and this customer, perhaps? A deeper connection that could explain the hostility? As the story spread across social media, people started to dig into the details, searching for answers and clues. Everyone wanted to know, who was the real villain here? And then, Just when it seemed like the answer might be revealed, something even more confusing happened. A second note surfaced. This one wasn't from the original customer, but from another diner in the same chain, a former colleague of Alex's. The note didn't carry the same venom as the first, but it was unsettling in its own way. It spoke of hidden tensions between employees, of unspoken grudges and long-simmering resentments. Suddenly, the story didn't seem so straightforward. Was this just one isolated incident, or was there a deeper web of conflict at play? Could this be the beginning of something bigger? As more people got involved, the layers of mystery continued to pile on. Was Alex really just defending their dignity, or was there a deeper motive that had yet to be uncovered? And what about the customer? Did they know something about Alex that no one else did? Had they been pushed to act in the way they did because of something personal, or was it all just an unfortunate misunderstanding? The tension was mounting, and every new detail only added more fuel to the fire. At this point, it was impossible to know what was true and what wasn't. The story had taken on a life of its own, and the answers seemed to be just out of reach. The suspense was unbearable. Who was really in the wrong here? And what would happen when all the secrets finally came to light? All of these questions and more will be answered shortly. But I'll warn you, once you hear what happens next, you won't look at the story the same way again. This isn't just about a rude note. It's about what happens when ordinary people are pushed to their limits and how one response can change everything. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. As the days passed, the story of Alex's response to the rude note began to take on a life of its own. The internet was abuzz, people debating and analyzing every aspect of the situation. But as the attention grew, so did the complications. What seemed like a simple act of standing up for oneself quickly spiraled into a series of events that no one, least of all Alex, had anticipated. The deeper Alex dug, trying to uncover the truth behind the rude note and the strange chain of events that followed, the more obstacles seemed to pop up, almost as if someone, or something, was trying to keep the answers hidden. It started with something small, something that would be easy to overlook if you weren't paying close attention. One evening, after work, Alex decided to check the receipts for the past week, just to piece together any possible clues that might help figure out who had left the note. But when they went through the pile, something fell off. The receipt with the note was missing.
Gone.
It should have been there, tucked away like all the others. They searched the entire drawer, retraced their steps, and even asked their coworkers if anyone had seen it. But no one had. It was as if the piece of evidence that could solve everything had vanished into thin air. At first, Alex brushed it off, assuming maybe it had just gotten misplaced. But as days passed, the nagging feeling of something being off began to grow. Why would the receipt disappear just as the story was gaining so much traction? Was it a coincidence? Or was someone trying to cover something up? Then, things got even stranger. Late one night, as Alex was heading out the door after another long shift, a voice stopped them in their tracks. It was one of the regulars, a man who had been coming to the diner for years, always sitting in the same corner booth. He'd been friendly enough, but something in his tone that night felt different. "You might want to let this one go," he said, leaning in a little too close. "Some things are better left unsaid. Trust me. Not everything is what it seems, kid." His words were vague, but the warning was clear. There was something Alex wasn't seeing, something that could be dangerous if they kept digging. The man didn't offer any explanation, didn't give any real reason for his warning. He simply turned and walked away, leaving Alex standing there, heart racing, wondering what he had meant. Was he just an overprotective regular, or was there something more to this? Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they had just been warned off, that someone didn't want them to uncover the truth. The next day, things took another strange turn. Alex received a cryptic text from an unknown number, no name, just a string of words that sent a chill down their spine. "Stop looking into it. You're in over your head." It was short, blunt, and filled with a sense of urgency. Who could have sent it? Alex didn't recognize the number, and no one in their life had ever communicated with them in this way. But the message was clear. Someone wanted them to stop. Was this the same person who had taken the receipt? Was it a friend trying to protect them? Or was someone trying to silence them for good? The mysterious warning only fueled Alex's determination to find the truth, but now the stakes felt higher than ever. Every step forward seemed to come with a new risk, and Alex wasn't sure who to trust anymore. As they pushed forward, trying to piece together the puzzle, they started to notice even more unsettling things. One of Alex's coworkers, Sam, had always been a friendly face, always ready with a joke or a word of encouragement. But recently, something about Sam had changed. They were quieter, more distant, and seemed almost nervous. At first, Alex didn't think much of it. After all, who wasn't stressed at work? But as they observed more closely, they couldn't shake the feeling that Sam was hiding something. They'd been one of the first to respond when Alex mentioned the missing receipt, offering to help look for it. But what if they knew more than they were letting on? What if Sam had a connection to the customer who had left the note, or to the strange events that had followed? Alex couldn't ignore the gut feeling telling them that something was off. Sam might just be the key to unlocking the mystery, or they could be part of the cover-up. But how could Alex figure out which? As Alex continued their search, they stumbled across another piece of information that only deepened the mystery. A few of the regulars, who had been following the story closely, mentioned that they'd seen the rude customer before many times. But the thing that struck Alex as odd was how they described the customer. Familiar, but somehow always in a hurry, always avoiding eye contact. And one regular, a woman who came in every Thursday, had a startling revelation. She claimed to have seen the customer in the diner just days before the note was left, sitting with someone, a person Alex had never seen before. The details were fuzzy, but the woman seemed certain of it. Could the customer have been part of something bigger? A network of people involved in this odd chain of events? Or was it just a coincidence? The tension was mounting, and with every new piece of the puzzle, Alex found themselves more entangled in a web of suspicion, deceit, and unanswered questions. What was really going on behind the scenes? Was the rude customer just a pawn in a much larger game, or was there something even more sinister lurking in the shadows? The pieces were slowly falling into place, but the picture they were forming didn't feel complete. Something was still missing. And then, just when Alex thought they were getting closer to the truth, the one thing they feared the most happened. Another warning. This time it was a voicemail. A distorted voice, unrecognizable, yet unmistakably urgent, said only a few words before hanging up. Stop. You have no idea what you're really dealing with. The walls were closing in, and Alex was left with more questions than ever. With the mounting pressure, the missing receipt, the cryptic messages, and the suspicious behavior from people they thought they could trust, the truth felt like a moving target, always just out of reach. Someone was watching them, someone who didn't want the truth to be uncovered. And the deeper Alex dug, the more dangerous it seemed to become. Who could they trust? Who was trying to stop them? And most importantly, what was at the heart of this mystery? At this point, you might be wondering what's really going on here. Is there a hidden conspiracy? Could Alex's own coworkers be involved? And who is pulling the strings behind all of this? The answers are coming, but be warned. They're not what you think. Keep watching, because what happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this story. Just when it seemed like the tension couldn't stretch any tighter, the story twisted again in a way no one, least of all Alex, could have seen coming. It began quietly, without drama, just a simple call from someone Alex hadn't heard from in years, Mia, a childhood friend who'd moved out of town nearly a decade ago. They had fallen out of touch, as many do, with time and life pulling them in different directions. But now, out of nowhere, Mia was back in their life, her voice shaky on the other end of the line, and what she had to say sent a chill straight down Alex's spine. "I got a note," she said, barely above a whisper. "I think it's connected to what's happening to you." She described it in detail, a crumpled slip of paper tucked beneath her windshield wiper, nothing but a typed message in bold, blocky font. "Stop digging. Some stories aren't yours to tell." Mia had no idea what it meant. She hadn't been involved in the viral receipt story, hadn't spoken to Alex in ages, hadn't even been in town until last week. Alex's mind raced. How could this be connected? Was it a warning to scare them through someone from their past? Or was it a message meant for Mia herself? One with roots that went deeper than either of them knew? Suddenly, the scope of the situation widened. It wasn't just about a rude note anymore, or a missing receipt, or strange voicemails. It was about something far more personal. Someone was watching not just Alex, but the people connected to them. Someone who was willing to reach beyond the restaurant, beyond the present, into the history of their lives to send a message. And now, the mystery wasn't just something Alex could pursue out of curiosity or principle. It was something that demanded answers for the safety of everyone involved. But just as quickly as Mia re-entered the picture, her presence brought with it an unexpected contradiction. She mentioned something that threw everything into question. She had seen the man believed to have left the original rude note. Not in the diner, but across town at a charity event. She recognized him instantly, his face still fresh in her mind from the viral screenshots online. But here's the thing, he wasn't alone. He was with a woman Mia swore was Sam, Alex's coworker. The very same Sam who had been acting off lately, distancing themselves, brushing off questions, and never quite meeting Alex's eyes. At first, Alex refused to believe it. Sam had been there that day, working the same shift. But when Alex tried to confirm the schedule through the restaurant system, they hit another wall. The time card for that day had been modified, marked with a correction that made no sense. It was as if someone had gone in and adjusted it retroactively, backdated it just enough to throw off the timeline. Why would Sam do that? And more importantly, what would they gain by lying about being there? The more Alex thought about it, the more disoriented they became. Could the note have been planted? Could the customer have been a setup? Was the whole thing staged to draw attention? Or perhaps to draw Alex into something they weren't supposed to see? Suddenly, even their own memory of that day felt fragile, like it was being pulled apart and rearranged. Other staff had been there too, but now their stories didn't quite align. One said they remembered the customer getting agitated and storming out. Another claimed he was polite, even apologetic. The footage from the security cameras was no help either, conveniently corrupted from that section of the day. A system glitch, the manager had said, brushing it off like it happened all the time. But Alex had worked there long enough to know that was a lie. Meanwhile, online theories were spinning out of control. TikTok users were dissecting every frame of Alex's viral video, turning the receipt into a symbol, a meme, even a conspiracy. Comments flooded in with theories ranging from disgruntled exes to undercover reporters to organized hoaxes staged for internet fame. Most were ridiculous, but a few had threads that stuck with Alex. One person pointed out that this wasn't the first time something like this had gone viral at that same diner. A few years back, a customer had claimed to find a threatening message in a coffee cup, written in Sharpie on the inside of the lid. That story had also made waves, but it had fizzled quickly, chalked up to a prank. Still, the coincidence was unsettling. Could the diner itself be connected to something deeper? Could someone within the staff be orchestrating these bizarre events? And then, like clockwork, the next bombshell dropped. The local news ran an anonymous tip that someone inside the diner had been leaking information to tabloids. It wasn't confirmed, but the story mentioned a server with dark hair and a side hustle in freelance writing, Sam. When Alex confronted Sam, their reaction wasn't anger or denial, it was fear. Not of Alex, but of something bigger. "You don't understand," Sam whispered. "You think this is about a rude note. It's not. That customer was never supposed to be there. He wasn't a customer at all. He was looking for someone." But before Alex could press further, Sam walked away and refused to speak to them again. The questions were now piling faster than Alex could answer them. Who is this man really? Why did Mia recognize him? And how is she being pulled into this mess? Was Sam helping or hiding? And what exactly was that man looking for the day he left the note? The clues were there, scattered like breadcrumbs, but every step closer only made the path darker and more twisted. The story had grown far beyond the original headline, becoming something more dangerous, more personal, and far less predictable. And just when Alex thought they were beginning to understand the stakes, they received a final message, one that would change everything. A blurry photo sent from an unknown number. It showed Alex, taken from a distance outside the diner, just hours ago. Underneath, a caption, You've got one chance left. Stop now, or we finish what we started. Something was coming, and Alex wasn't sure they could stop it. It happened on a night that should have felt normal, calm even. The wind was gentle, the streets were quiet, and the air carried that familiar scent of fried food and car exhaust that always lingered around closing time. But something about it didn't sit right with Alex. Maybe it was the way the streetlight outside the diner flickered inconsistently, or how the shadows on the sidewalks stretched longer than they should have. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was fear already nesting deep in their gut, but whatever it was, it made Alex look twice before stepping outside. And that's when they saw it. A dark sedan parked across the street, engine running, headlights off. At first, it looked like just another car waiting for a pickup or lingering before heading home. But then Alex moved, and the car moved too. Not aggressively, just slowly, deliberately, matching their steps like a shadow playing a twisted game. That's when it hit. This wasn't random. It wasn't paranoia or nerves. This was surveillance. Someone was watching them, and they wanted Alex to know it. Heart racing, Alex ducked into the alley behind the diner, every nerve screaming. They cut through the back streets they used to take as shortcuts during busy shifts, hoping the tight corners and sharp turns would throw off whoever was following them. But no matter how many blocks they put between them and that car, it reappeared, parked a block down, lurking behind trees, sometimes just the faint silhouette of someone inside watching silently. Alex didn't go home that night. They wandered for hours, ducking into a late-night coffee shop to charge their phone and pretend they weren't shaking. But when they checked their inbox again, something new had arrived, a single image, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier. It showed the outside of their apartment building. Not the front door. Their window. The blinds slightly open, the glow of a desk lamp illuminating the interior just enough for someone to see in. Beneath it, another message. Still think this is about a receipt? That was the breaking point. Any illusion that this could still be some bizarre social prank or misunderstanding shattered instantly. This was calculated. It was personal. And it was growing. They didn't go to the police. Not yet. They had tried before, when the voicemail first came in, and the footage mysteriously went missing. But the officer on duty had treated it like an internet stunt gone wrong. People get obsessed with viral stories, he said with a shrug. Sometimes weird stuff just happens when you're trending. Lay low, it'll blow over. Only it wasn't blowing over. It was escalating. And now people were getting dragged into it. The next morning, Alex tried calling Mia, just to hear a familiar voice, to feel like they weren't spiraling alone, but her phone rang straight to voicemail. Over and over. At first, they told themselves it was nothing. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe she'd gotten scared and turned everything off. But by afternoon, her apartment was empty. The manager said she'd packed her things and checked out overnight. No note. No text. Just gone. And the part that really rattled Alex? She hadn't told anyone where she was staying, not even Alex. It was supposed to be temporary, just a place to crash while she sorted things out. Which meant someone else must have found her and convinced her to disappear. That's when Alex started seeing them. Not just the sedan anymore, but other faces. A man reading a newspaper at a bench outside the diner. Same bench, same paper, 3 days in a row. A woman walking a dog past Alex's building each night at precisely the same time, though the dog never seemed to move or sniff or play. One morning, Alex spotted a man in a maintenance uniform entering the diner's back door, except they didn't have any repairs scheduled and none of the other staff recognized him. He was gone by the time anyone thought to question it. The fear began to bleed into everything: sleep, memory, even reality. Alex started forgetting things. Conversations. Where they left their phone. Whether or not they'd locked the door. And then came the dreams, if they could be called that. Vivid flashes of fire, of screaming, of names they didn't remember saying. They'd wake up drenched in sweat, unsure of what was real. And always, that same phrase echoing in the background. Some stories aren't yours to tell. Alex no longer felt like the lead in their own story. They were being moved, pushed, watched, manipulated by something just out of reach. Something with resources, patience, and a clear message: stay quiet. But there was still one piece of the puzzle that didn't make sense. That note on the receipt. Why start there? Why go public if they were so desperate for secrecy? Unless the note wasn't meant for the customer at all. What if it wasn't about the content of the message, but where it was left? Who would find it? What if Alex was always the target, and this was the way to draw them in? That thought haunted them, gnawed at their sanity, made every moment heavier than the last. And just when they thought they couldn't carry any more weight, another blow landed, this time from inside the restaurant. Their manager, someone who had once stood by them through thick and thin, pulled them aside. Not to offer comfort, not to check in, but to quietly tell them they were being put on leave. Until things calmed down, she said, barely able to meet Alex's eyes. It's too much distraction. Too much attention. We're getting calls. Threats. We need to protect the business. Alex felt like they were sinking through the floor. It wasn't just their safety at risk anymore, it was their livelihood, their community, their ability to trust anyone. The story had become a storm, one that was now pulling them under. And as the pressure mounted, the walls closing in tighter each day, Alex knew one thing for sure. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone with a plan and the power to erase people like Mia, silence voices like Sam, and turn trusted allies into fearful strangers. But who? And why? As night fell again over the city, Alex sat by the window, blinds drawn tight, phone gripped in hand, waiting for another message. Another clue. Another threat. They weren't sure what would come next, but they were certain it wouldn't be over anytime soon. The air felt heavier that night, not with humidity, but with a suffocating tension that wrapped itself around Alex's chest like a vice. Every sound seemed sharper. Distant footsteps, the hum of streetlights, the soft shuffle of neighbors behind their walls. For days, the silence had been their worst enemy, filled with paranoia and fear of the unknown. But tonight, the silence broke with a sudden knock at the door. Not loud, not aggressive, just steady 3 taps, evenly spaced, like someone trying not to wake the rest of the world. Alex didn't move at first. Just stared at the door like it might open itself. No one knew they were staying here, not even their closest friends, and the landlord had promised full discretion. Every instinct screamed not to answer. But when they finally stepped toward it and peered through the peephole, the face on the other side sent a bolt of confusion and disbelief through their spine. It was Sam, the dishwasher. The quiet guy who never made a fuss, never involved himself in drama, who had vanished after that weird night when the footage disappeared and no one could explain why. He looked tired, thinner, like he hadn't slept in days. And when Alex opened the door, he didn't ask to come in. He just said 5 words that split reality in 2. You were never the target. The room spun slightly as the words hung in the air, and Alex felt their pulse thundering in their ears. Sam stepped inside, cautious, always looking over his shoulder. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. Instead, he pulled out a small thumb drive from his jacket pocket and placed it on the table like it was radioactive. This, he said, is what they've been trying to hide. And I wasn't supposed to keep it. But I did. Because I thought you deserved to know the truth. Alex stared at the device, heart pounding. What's on it? They asked, unsure if they even wanted to know. Sam hesitated, visibly wrestling with something. Then he sat down and began to explain, slowly, piece by piece, how none of this had started with the receipt, the note, or even the viral story that followed. It went deeper, much deeper. It turns out, several months before Alex even started at the diner, the restaurant had come under investigation, not a formal one, but quiet and internal, by a group of private contractors. These weren't police or federal agents. They were the kind of people hired when someone with money needed secrets buried. The real reason? Someone had been using the diner as a drop point. Not for drugs or money, but for information. Encrypted files. Sensitive transfers disguised as orders, passed through the system in a way no one would notice unless they knew what to look for. The receipts, Sam said, weren't just random scraps of paper. They were digital breadcrumbs. Tiny clues pointing to something dangerous. Something powerful. And then Sam dropped the real bomb. The night the rude note went viral, the receipt that triggered everything wasn't meant to reach the internet. It wasn't even meant for the customer. It was part of a system, an embedded code slipped into the bottom line by mistake, like a misfired bullet. Someone intercepted it. Someone who wasn't supposed to. And from that moment, all eyes turned toward Alex, not because of who they were, but because of what they unknowingly touched. But it didn't end there. Sam leaned in, eyes burning with urgency, and revealed the twist that shattered the very core of everything Alex believed. The person who had been feeding him information this whole time, the one who'd supposedly gone missing, whose apartment had been cleared out overnight, Mia? She wasn't running from the people behind this. She was working with them. Alex's mouth went dry, the room swaying under the weight of betrayal. It couldn't be. Mia was their closest ally, the only one who had believed them from the start, the one who cried with them, hid with them, made them feel less alone in all this. And yet Sam had proof. Phone records. Footage. A quiet video taken weeks ago, showing Mia sitting at a table with a man Alex didn't recognize, one of the same faces from the surveillance photos Alex had collected. They weren't arguing. They were laughing. Comfortable. Familiar. Mia's real name isn't Mia, Sam added. She's part of the group that started this whole thing. She was embedded early, maybe even before you started working there. Her job wasn't to protect you. It was to keep tabs on you. Make sure you didn't stumble too far into the truth. Alex felt like their body was shutting down, mind trying to recalibrate what had just been said. Every moment replayed in their head. Every hug, every late-night phone call, every panicked message, and now they all felt like rehearsed scenes in a play Alex hadn't known they were part of. The pieces began to align, but instead of forming a picture, they revealed a trap. One they'd been walking into from the start. And just when it seemed like things couldn't spiral further, Sam's phone buzzed on the table. One message. No name. Just a photo. It was Alex, sitting across from Sam. Taken through the window of the very apartment they thought was secure. The timestamp? Less than 5 minutes ago. They weren't just being watched anymore. They were being hunted. Tracked in real time. Which meant Mia, or whoever she really was, knew Sam had broken rank. And she wasn't going to let him walk away. The knock on the door this time was louder. More urgent. Not 3 taps, but a sharp, rhythmic pounding. The kind that didn't ask permission. And that's where everything snapped. The pounding at the door rattled the hinges, shaking the silence apart like a bomb had gone off in the air between them. Sam's eyes shot to the window, scanning for a way out, but Alex already knew. They were boxed in. Whoever was on the other side wasn't just there to scare them. They were there to end this, one way or another. Every instinct screamed to run, to vanish, to abandon the whole mess and forget it ever happened. But that would mean leaving the truth buried, letting the people behind it rewrite the story one last time, while everyone else moved on, never knowing how close they came to something much bigger than a rude note and a viral receipt. The weight of that decision settled on Alex like a brick to the chest. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about every lie told in the name of silence, every manipulated story that shaped public opinion, and every good person who got swept away in the chaos for daring to look closer. They backed away from the door as it rattled again, heavier this time, then turned to Sam, whose face had gone pale. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "They're not going to knock a 3rd time." But before Alex could move, before they could even gather their thoughts, their phone lit up with a new message. No name. No number. Just a single video clip. Alex's younger brother, Dylan, standing in the parking lot of his high school, completely unaware that someone was watching from a distance. The footage zoomed in slowly, ending on his face with eerie precision. Underneath it, just 3 words. Make the call. Alex's knees buckled slightly. This was no longer a warning, it was a move. A threat that cut past paranoia and straight into reality. Whoever was pulling the strings knew their weak spot. And they were daring Alex to protect the truth over their own blood. Sam moved fast, yanking open a false panel beneath the kitchen sink and revealing a metal case hidden in the shadows. He opened it to reveal a burner phone and an old flash drive that looked nearly identical to the one he'd already shown Alex.
"There's more than one copy," he said.
"If anything happens to me, send this to every contact on that phone. Press send and walk away. But don't use your own number. Don't even speak into it. Just send and run." He shoved the items into Alex's hands, but Alex didn't move. They were frozen, paralyzed by the decision already forming in their mind. They could walk out right now, disappear, protect Dylan, and bury the story forever. Or they could make the call, leak everything, and become a target not just for the people behind this, but for anyone who stood to lose something once the truth came out. That's when the second twist landed like a hammer to the chest. Sam's burner phone buzzed. Another message. This time, it wasn't a threat, it was a location. A parking garage downtown.
Coordinates.
A timestamp just 20 minutes away. And underneath it, one final line. She wants to talk.
Mia.
Or whoever she really was. Sam's voice cracked as he read the message aloud. If she wants to talk, it means they're divided. Someone's losing control. But Alex knew better. This wasn't about negotiation. This was about leverage. Mia had won. And she was daring Alex to come see her and find out what it was alone. Alex stared at the screen, jaw tight, pulse slamming in their throat. Sam was already saying it was a trap, that they shouldn't go, that they should just release the drive and disappear. But Alex wasn't sure anymore. What if Mia wasn't just a mole? What if she was playing both sides? And what if, just maybe, she had a way to end this without turning it into a wildfire? But that was the impossible part. Going meant risking everything, including Dylan's safety. Staying meant trusting that someone who'd already lied could somehow redeem themselves. And either choice meant facing a truth Alex wasn't sure they were ready to hear. As the time ticked down, the apartment filled with silence again. Only this time, it wasn't paralyzing. It was the kind that comes right before the storm hits, when the air goes still and every instinct tells you the world's about to change forever. Alex knew they couldn't trust anyone, but they also knew one thing was certain. They were in too deep to back out now. They picked up the flash drive, tucked it deep into their coat, and looked at Sam. "If I'm not back in an hour, send it. No matter what. Promise me." Sam opened his mouth to protest, but stopped. He saw it in Alex's eyes. There was no turning back. And as Alex stepped into the dark hallway, the door clicking shut behind them, they didn't realize that someone else was already watching from the end of the corridor. Just waiting. Just listening. The garage was colder than expected, with shadows crawling across the cracked concrete like the place had been abandoned for years. Every footstep echoed louder than the last, building a rhythm of dread in Alex's chest as they moved deeper into the belly of the structure. The time on their phone matched the timestamp exactly. No one in sight. Just empty levels, flickering lights, and the buzz of a security camera they were sure wasn't functioning. And then a sound, heels on pavement. Slow, deliberate, like the person making them wanted to be heard. Alex turned sharply, pulse spiking, only to see Mia step into the open from behind a concrete pillar. Except this wasn't the same Mia who served tables and slipped phone numbers on receipts. She looked sharper now, more controlled, like someone who'd finally shed their mask. Her eyes were colder too, almost clinical. She didn't smile. She didn't speak right away. She just tossed a small, black object at Alex's feet. It clattered. A voice recorder. Alex didn't move to pick it up. "I assume you already know it's real," Mia said, finally breaking the silence. "That it wasn't just a rude customer or a rogue prank. What you don't know is that it never started with that receipt. It started years ago, with whistleblowers, cover-ups, and a data leak that nearly cost a senator his seat." She took a step closer. "And someone like you got just a little too curious." Alex felt the weight of it sinking in. This wasn't just corporate retaliation. It wasn't about bad tips or customer complaints. It was political. Government contracts. Insider deals buried beneath layers of forged signatures and fake nonprofits. The restaurant was just a front, one small piece in a long chain of moving parts designed to launder influence, not money. And the rude note on the receipt? That was a warning misinterpreted. A message left for the wrong person. A mistake. They were watching the wrong person, Mia said. That customer, the one who left the message? He was trying to warn Sam. But you intercepted it. And now you've been looped into something that stretches beyond either of you. Before Alex could reply, another voice cut through the air. Familiar. Bitter. Don't listen to her.
Sam.
He stepped out from the shadows on the upper level, gun drawn but trembling slightly. His eyes were locked on Mia, jaw clenched. She's not who you think. She's been playing us both since the beginning. Mia didn't flinch. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she turned her gaze back to Alex. Did he tell you who he really works for? Did he mention that the flash drive was never his to begin with? That he stole it from someone inside the Department of Energy? That his whole act, bartender, informant, friend, was a setup to get you to leak it for him, so his name stays out of it? Alex's throat dried up. The weight of every choice, every moment spent trusting Sam, came crashing down like a freight train. They looked up at him, eyes searching for any flicker of truth. But Sam didn't deny it. He just sighed, the weight of his own lies folding into his shoulders. I needed you, he said quietly. You had reach. You had sympathy. You were the perfect shield. I didn't expect you to dig this deep. Alex stepped back, heart pounding so violently it felt like it was trying to claw out of their chest. The betrayal cut deep, not just because it hurt, but because it made everything more fragile, more dangerous. They'd been a pawn in a game much bigger than they ever imagined. And now, with both Mia and Sam aiming their truths at them like loaded weapons, Alex didn't know who was lying and who was just trying to survive. But there was no time to sort it out. From the garage entrance came the sound of tires screeching. Black SUVs. No plates. The kind that didn't belong to police but still screamed federal. Mia's face went stiff. They found us. Sam was already moving, motioning for Alex to run, but Alex didn't move. Not yet. Not until they knew the truth. Who sent the note? They asked Mia, one last question clawing at the back of their throat. Was it really a warning or a trigger? Mia hesitated. Just for a second. But in that second, everything shifted.
It was both, she said.
And now you're the variable they didn't account for. The ground shook as boots hit the pavement. The echo of armed footsteps closing in from every level. Mia grabbed Alex's wrist, yanking them toward the back stairwell. You want to live long enough to tell your story? Then move.
Now.
As they ran, Alex didn't look back. They couldn't afford to, not now. Not when the entire narrative had flipped on its head, and they still didn't know who was hunting who, or why they were the center of it all. The stairwell felt like it stretched for miles, every step a jolt of panic echoing off concrete walls as Alex, Mia, and a reluctant, bleeding Sam raced upward toward the rooftop. The pounding of boots below grew louder, more coordinated. Whoever was after them wasn't just responding, they were executing a plan. Alex didn't have time to process how much of this had been manipulated from the beginning. All they could focus on was the flash drive burning in their pocket and the certainty that its contents held the final answer, the piece of truth no one wanted exposed. When they burst onto the rooftop, the wind hit like a slap to the face. The city glittered around them, oblivious to the chaos unraveling above it. Helicopters buzzed in the distance. Not police. Not news. Something quieter. Less public. Mia took one look over the edge and cursed under her breath. No extraction, she muttered. They locked us in. Sam collapsed against a vent, his shirt soaked in red. He was pale, but not dead. Not yet. He's here, he rasped. The one who started it. You need to end it, Alex. Before it disappears again. Alex looked down at the flash drive. The last 24 hours had shattered every assumption they held about justice, loyalty, truth. But this wasn't just about leaked files or shady deals anymore. It was about accountability. About exposing the kind of rot that festered in dark corners of American power structures, shielded by bureaucracy and fear. Then the door opened. He didn't look like a villain. That's what hit Alex hardest. The man who stepped onto the rooftop looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a rooftop ambush. Khakis. Button-down shirt. a calm face made eerie by how utterly unbothered he seemed. No security team. No weapons drawn. Just a man holding a leather folder. "I was hoping we could avoid this," he said evenly. "But since you insisted on playing hero..." Alex stepped forward, fury swirling with adrenaline. "Who are you?" The man gave a polite smile. "Think of me as quality control. My job was never to stop the leak. It was to make sure the right story came out. Controlled. Sanitized. Your little detour through moral outrage has made that a lot harder." Mia stiffened beside Alex. "He's part of the committee. Internal oversight for private contractors feeding intelligence agencies." "Not part," the man corrected. "I chair it." And suddenly, Alex understood. The rude note. The death threats. The sudden disappearance of Mia's coworker. It wasn't about silencing them, it was about baiting them. Pushing them into exposing the drive at the wrong time, under the wrong circumstances. A media explosion without context. A leak so big it discredited itself. Overwhelmed the system with data, and no one believes any of it. "You are going to leak it yourselves," Alex said slowly. "Frame it like foreign interference. Dismiss the real crimes as hoaxes." "Bingo," the man replied, his eyes glinting. "But you've made that more complicated. That drive contains names, payments, GPS tracking data of Black Ops targets who weren't supposed to exist. If it gets out without spin control, this entire ecosystem collapses. Government agencies, private contractors, billions in undisclosed budgets. And I can't let that happen." He stepped forward, hand out. "Give me the drive. I'll let you walk away. No charges. No surveillance. Just back to your quiet little life." Alex didn't move. They glanced at Sam, who was trying to sit up. At Mia, whose hand was slowly inching toward her boot where a pistol waited. Everything felt still, like the moment before a storm finally breaks. Then Alex did something unexpected. They tossed the flash drive. Not to the man. Off the roof. It arced in the air like a silver bullet, vanishing into the night. For a split second, everything froze. The man's calm cracked, a flicker of panic flashing across his face. But before he could react, Mia lunged. 2 shots rang out, echoing over the skyline. The man stumbled back, a dark bloom spreading across his shirt, collapsing before he could call for help. Sam wheezed a laugh. "Where did it land?" Alex looked over the edge. "On top of a rideshare SUV. Just pulled out of the lot. I tagged it with an AirTag. It's heading downtown." Mia raised an eyebrow. "That was reckless." "No," Alex said. "That was insurance. We're not the only ones in this. Let them try to bury it. We'll be ready when it surfaces again." As sirens grew closer, and the distant roar of backup reinforcements echoed in the air, Alex felt something settle deep inside them. Not peace, but purpose. The story wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. But what they didn't see, what no one saw, was the second flash drive hidden in the man's folder, still intact, encrypted, and ready for its own controlled release. Because in the world of secrets, the truth rarely belongs to just one side. 3 weeks later, the city had settled into its normal rhythm, its skyline still blinking with the same neon glow that once seemed to whisper secrets. But for Alex, nothing felt familiar anymore. They sat alone at the cafe where it all began, the clink of dishes and idle chatter around them somehow louder in the absence of chaos. The world hadn't ended. No mass arrests. No breaking news splash of a global conspiracy takedown. But things had changed, subtly, almost invisibly, like the quiet hum of an engine still running beneath the surface. The flash drive that vanished off the rooftop had made its way back to them, not directly, but through a quiet digital channel, disguised as a corrupted file buried in a folder labeled with Mia's old case number. Someone out there wanted the truth to live, even if they couldn't shout it. Alex spent sleepless nights poring through the files, cross-referencing the names, the transactions, the fabricated stories fed to both foreign media and domestic news outlets. And somewhere in all of it was the real story, the one that mattered. Not just corruption or betrayal, but control. About how narratives are shaped, voices manipulated, and whistleblowers turned into cautionary tales. Sam had survived, though barely, and had quietly disappeared into the kind of life where burner phones and aliases were second nature. He still sent messages from time to time, sometimes just a single emoji letting Alex know he was alive, watching, waiting. Mia stayed underground as well, but she'd become a ghost in the best way, surfacing only to leak fragments of the truth to trusted sources, forcing the media to chase shadows while never catching the full picture. What stayed with Alex most, though, wasn't the story's explosive potential. It was how close they'd come to giving it up. There had been a moment, on that rooftop, when walking away felt easier, even rational. The temptation to trade justice for safety, truth for peace, was real, and it scared them to know how human that instinct had been. But something deeper had won out. Maybe it was Mia's unshakable courage, or Sam's sacrifice. Maybe it was that quiet, gut-level voice that said someone had to stand when everyone else was kneeling. Either way, they didn't walk away. The aftermath was quieter than expected. A slow trickle of resignations within certain government agencies. A surprise audit of private military contractors. A spike in encrypted messages flagged by watchdogs who couldn't decipher them fast enough. To the public, it looked like bureaucracy shuffling papers. But to those who knew better, it was proof that the system had been shaken and that it had felt the tremor. Alex closed the laptop gently and looked out the window. The same street where the rude note had first sent them spiraling into a story bigger than themselves was still bustling. People carried coffee cups, scrolled through their phones, honked impatiently in traffic. They wondered how many of them suspected that beneath the surface of everyday life was a network of choices and secrets dictating more than anyone realized. That some truths get buried, not because they're dangerous, but because they're inconvenient. Still, as the server approached with a soft smile and refilled their mug, Alex smiled back. There was peace in small moments. Not every war ends with an explosion. Sometimes it ends with a quiet vow to keep watching, to keep fighting in the subtle ways that matter. But as they reached for their phone, a new message appeared. No name, no subject, just a photo, blurry, taken from a distance. It showed Mia in a crowd, her face turned toward the camera, eyes locked like she knew someone was watching. Beneath it, one sentence. "You thought it was over?" Alex's heart skipped. They looked around the cafe, suddenly alert again. Because sometimes the end of one story is just the first chapter of another.